The moment Dr. Henry walked into my hospital room, clipboard in hand, and a grave look on his face, I knew the news wouldn't be good. But I never imagined what would come next. I never imagined that the real blow wouldn't come from the diagnosis, but from the reaction of my daughter-in-law, Rachel. The doctor took a deep breath and spoke the words that changed everything. "Miss Helen, I regret to inform you that due to complications from the accident, your vital organs are failing. The internal damage is severe. You have approximately 3 days to live." I felt the air leave my lungs. 3 days. Only 3 days to say goodbye to the world I had built with my own hands over decades. I looked over at my son Mark, hoping to see pain in his eyes, hoping he would take my hand, tell me everything would be fine, that we would fight together until the end. But what I saw chilled me to the bone. Rachel, my daughter-in-law, was there trying to cry but failing miserably. She put her hands over her face, making loud theatrical sobbing noises. But through her fingers, I saw her eyes. They were dry, and what's more, they were glittering with a terrifying mixture of relief and pure, unadulterated excitement. Dr. Henry left the room to give us privacy, or so he thought. As soon as the door clicked shut, Mark rushed to my bedside. He took my hand not with love, but with a strange, almost triumphant firmness. He leaned in close to my ear and whispered, "It's finally happening, Mom. All your money will be mine and Rachel's. It's about time." The words hit me like physical stones. Rachel pulled away from the wall, her fake tears gone. She approached from the other side, looking at me with a coldness she had never openly shown before. $5 million, the real estate portfolio, the tech stocks. It's all ours. "Finally," she said, her voice now sharp with glee. "We won't have to pretend anymore." They were laughing. Both of them were laughing while I lay there connected to machines, my body battered from the accident that had nearly killed me 3 days ago. I closed my eyes, but not from physical pain. The hurt I felt was much deeper. For 35 years, I had been Mark's mother. I raised him alone after my husband died when Mark was just 5 years old. I worked 18 hours a day. I built a real estate empire from scratch. I sacrificed 1,000 times to give him the best education, the best life. And this was my reward. "When do you think we can start the paperwork?" Rachel asked Mark as if I were already dead. "The attorney said we can expedite the process. As for her, we can access the accounts in less than a week." "Perfect," Mark replied. "I already chose the cruise we're taking a month in the Mediterranean. We deserve it after putting up with so much. Putting up with..." That phrase echoed in my head. Putting up with me, putting up with the mother who gave them everything. I kept my eyes closed, controlling my breathing. I couldn't let them see how much their words were tearing me apart. Not yet. "Do you think she'll suffer a lot?" Rachel asked with chilling indifference. Mark shrugged. "The doctor said she'll probably slip into a coma in the next couple of days. It will be quick better. I don't want to keep coming to the hospital all the time. The smell grosses me out." They stayed a few more minutes discussing which furniture from my penthouse in downtown Miami they would keep and which they would sell. They spoke of my life, my possessions, everything I had built as if they were objects in a liquidation sale. When they finally left, I opened my eyes. Tears streamed silently down my cheeks. But something else burned in my chest, something stronger than pain, something more powerful than betrayal, rage. I was not going to let them get away with this, not after discovering who they really were. This is the value of speaking up and acting when you feel doubt. Never accept silence in the face of suspicion. Dr. Henry returned an hour later. This time he closed the door carefully and approached my bed with a completely different expression. He was no longer the grim doctor delivering a terminal diagnosis. He was my friend of 30 years, the man who had treated my late husband, who had watched Mark grow up. "Helen," he said softly. "I heard everything from outside. I left the intercom on by accident." I looked at him confused. "It wasn't an accident," he continued. "I had suspicions about Mark and Rachel for months. I saw them in the hospital 3 weeks ago asking about your health, about your estate, about what would happen if you... Well, it seems strange to me, too. Calculating." "Henry, what are you saying?" He sat in the chair next to my bed and lowered his voice even further. "Your condition is serious, Helen, I won't lie to you. But it's not as catastrophic as I told them. You have internal injuries, severe fractures, major contusions. Yes, but your vital organs are responding better than expected. With proper treatment and rest, you could have months, maybe more. Definitely not 3 days." My heart began to race. Months. I exaggerated the prognosis because I wanted to see your son's reaction. I needed to confirm my suspicions. He paused, and unfortunately, I was right. Henry's words floated in the air. Not 3 days. Enough time to do something. Enough time to plan. "Why did you do this?" I whispered. "Because I know you, Helen. I know your strength. And because if your son and daughter-in-law are so eagerly awaiting your death, you need to know the truth before it's too late. Before you sign anything. Before you make decisions about your inheritance without knowing their true intentions." He was right. I had been considering making Mark the executive of my trust. I had trusted him blindly. "There's something else," Henry said, pulling out his phone. "I have a friend who works in private investigation. I asked her to discreetly check Mark's finances. Helen, your son, has gambling debts exceeding $800,000. Rachel has credit cards maxed out. They are desperate." The revelation hit me like a second accident. $800,000. That explained the smile. That explained the urgency. That explained the joy upon hearing my death sentence. "What can I do?" I whispered it, feeling fear and rage mix in my chest. Henry leaned forward. "You can use this time. You can pretend you are worse than you are. You can observe, listen, gather evidence, and you can protect what you built." His words ignited something in me. A plan began to form in my mind, still blurry but taking shape. "I'll need help," I said. "I've already thought of that. I know an excellent attorney, Sarah Jenkins, specializing in probate and family fraud. I can contact her discreetly." I nodded slowly. "And I need you to keep up the diagnosis charade. Mark and Rachel must continue to believe I only have days left." Henry smiled for the first time. "That will be easy. In fact, I can make the prognosis seem to worsen. More tests, more complications. Keep them confident, do it." That night, alone in the hospital room with the constant sound of the machines and the dim light dits, I made a decision. I was not going to die a victim. I was not going to let my son and his wife destroy everything I had worked for. If they wanted to play dirty, I was going to teach them who invented the game. The next day, Mark and Rachel returned to the hospital. This time, they brought a folder full of papers and that same fake excitement I could now see with total clarity. "Mom, we brought some documents," Mark said in a soft, almost affectionate voice. What a good actor he was. Just formalities, health insurance stuff, authorization for treatments, nothing important. But I could read, and though I pretended to be weak with half-closed eyes, I saw the words on those papers. Property transfer power of attorney bank account access. "You can sign here, Mom." he insisted, pushing a pen toward my trembling hand. I'm very tired, I mumbled in a broken voice. Tomorrow, son. Tomorrow. I saw the frustration cross his face for a second before the mask returned. Of course, Mom. Rest. Tomorrow it is. Rachel stayed watching me with those cold, calculating eyes. Then she turned to Mark. How much do you think the vacation home in Aspen is worth at least $1.5 million? It's in a prime area. We could sell it fast. There are buyers waiting in that zone. They spoke as if I weren't there, as if I were already dead and buried. After they left Nurse Brenda, a kind woman in her mid-50s who had worked at this community hospital for 15 years, came in to check my vitals. She was honest, one of those people who still believed in doing the right thing. Miss Helen, she whispered, as she adjusted my IV drip, I don't want to get involved where I shouldn't, but I overheard your son and daughter-in-law in the hallway. They were talking about pulling the plug early. My blood ran cold. What exactly did they say? Brenda looked toward the door, nervous. Your daughter-in-law said that if you slipped into a coma, it would be easier to convince the doctors there was no hope left, that they could accelerate the process. Mark said he knew someone at the hospital who could help. I felt the rage burn inside me. They didn't just want my money. They wanted to ensure I died quickly. Brenda, I need you to do me a favor, I said, taking her hand. I need you to be my eyes and ears. Listen to everything they say when they think no one is listening. Can you do that for me? She nodded without hesitation. Anything you need, Miss Helen, your son is not a good man. I see it in his eyes. On the third day in the hospital, Dr. Henry discharged me under the condition of absolute bed rest at home. Of course, in front of Mark and Rachel, the diagnosis remained terminal. 3 days, he repeated to them. Perhaps less if there are complications. Mark insisted I stay in my master suite on the second floor. So you'll be comfortable, Mom. You'll have everything you need. But I knew the truth. They wanted me isolated away from the main areas of the house, where they could do whatever they wanted without me seeing them. My house was a large 2-story mansion in a wealthy Los Angeles suburb that I had bought 20 years ago, when my real estate business took off. 5 bedrooms, a large yard, a pool, all paid for with my sweat and tears, and now they walked through it as if it were already theirs. On the 4th day, pretending to sleep, I heard footsteps in the hallway. Mark and Rachel didn't know I had installed a baby monitor years ago, back when my grandchildren used to visit. The device was still working, hidden in a drawer in my nightstand. Their voices came clearly from the living room. I called the appraiser. Rachel was saying he's coming tomorrow at 10 or 0. I told him to be discreet. Perfect. And the real estate agent. I already sent him photos of the house. He says he can sell it in less than a month if the price is right. He's talking about $2.8 million. Excellent. With that, we pay off my debts, and we still have $2 million clean profit. And the other properties, 3 apartment buildings, the commercial space downtown, and the Aspen home. Altogether, that's another $4 million easily. Rachel let out a laugh. 7 million, Mark. 7 million. 7. We won't have to worry about anything ever again. I know. And to think I almost felt bad when the doctor broke the news. But it was the best news of my life. Mine too. Your mother was always so controlling, so nosy, always giving her opinion on how we should live, how we should spend, as if her money was untouchable. Now it will be our money and we'll do whatever we want with it. I gripped the sheets with my fists. Every word was a stab, but I needed to hear more. I needed to know the full extent of their betrayal. Did you talk to that contact of yours at the hospital? Rachel asked. Yeah, Frank works the night shift. He says if she slips into a coma, or if she seems to be suffering too much, He can, help the process along faster. An extra dose of morphine. No one asks questions with terminal patients. My heart stopped for a second. They were planning to murder me, and you trust him, I owe him favors, and I offered him $50,000 once we have the money. He accepted immediately. Perfect. Because honestly, I don't want to wait the full 3 days. Every day coming to this house, pretending I care is driving me crazy. I know, honey, but it's almost over. Just a little more patience. I heard the sound of a kiss, then footsteps moving away. They had probably gone out to the yard. I lay there trembling with rage and disbelief. My own son had hired someone to kill me to speed up my death and collect his inheritance faster. I took my cell phone, the one I had hidden under the pillow, and dialed the number Dr. Henry had given me. Attorney Sarah Jenkins, I asked when she answered. Yes, speaking. I need to see you urgently. Dr. Henry contacted you about my case, Miss Helen. Yes, I've been expecting your call. When can we meet tonight? You can come to my house at 11 Uri. My son and his wife always go out around that time. They say they're going to dinner, but I know they're going to the local casino in Englewood. I'll be there. And Ms. Helen, I'll bring the documents we'll need. We're gonna fix this. I hung up and closed my eyes. The plan was taking shape, but I needed more. I needed solid proof. I needed evidence that would completely destroy Mark and Rachel. That afternoon, when Nurse Brenda came to help me bathe, I gave her specific instructions. I need you to buy 3 small discrete cameras, the kind that can be camouflaged. One for the living room, one for the dining room, and one for the study. Here's the cash. And Brenda, not a soul manapot. No one. She took the money and nodded. Count on me, Miss Helen. I'll make it look like I'm going out for normal errands. And one more thing. I need you to record every conversation you hear between Mark and Rachel. Use your cell phone. It doesn't matter if the quality isn't perfect. I just need their voices, their words. I'll do it. When Mark came up to bring me dinner that night, I pretended to be worse. I coughed weakly. I let my hand tremble as I held the glass of water. How are you feeling, Mom? He asked with that fake acted voice. Very bad, son. Very weak. I don't know if I'll make it until tomorrow. I saw his eyes light up for a second. Hope. Hope that I would die soon. Don't say that, Mom. You're strong. You've always been strong. Liar. You damned liar. Mark, I said in a broken voice, if anything happens to me, I want you to know that everything I have is yours. It was always yours. I love you, son. I almost vomited saying those words, but I needed him to believe I was still the naive mother who trusted him blindly. I love you too, Mom, he replied, kissing my forehead. A cold, empty, calculating kiss. When he left the room, I heard his muffled laugh in the hallway. I heard Rachel ask, "How is she?" Worse. I don't think she'll make it to the weekend. Thank God, I'm already tired of this charade. I closed my eyes and breathed deeply. Not yet, I told myself. It's not time to show my cards yet. First the evidence, first the trap, then justice. At 11:00 that night, like clockwork, I heard Mark's luxury sedan pull out of the garage. Just as I predicted, they were off to the casino. Rachel had told a friend on the phone that they had a winning streak and couldn't waste it. How ironic winning at the casino while losing fortunes in debt. 15 minutes later, the doorbell rang. Brenda, who had stayed with me under the excuse of being my night nurse, went down to open it. Sarah Jenkins entered my room with a leather briefcase and a serious but compassionate expression. She was a woman in her mid-40s, impeccably dressed in a charcoal gray suit, her hair pulled back with an intelligent, direct gaze. Miss Helen, she said, shaking my hand firmly. "I regret that we meet under these circumstances." "Me too, but I'm glad you're here." She sat in the chair beside my bed and opened her briefcase. "Dr. Henry brought me up to speed on the situation. Your son and daughter-in-law believe you only have days to live and are preparing to inherit. But I need you to tell me everything from the beginning. Every detail matters." For the next hour, I told her everything. The accident, the false diagnosis, Mark's reaction, the conversations I had overheard, the murder plot with the hospital employee, the gambling debts, the appraisers, everything. Sarah took notes on her tablet, nodding occasionally. When I finished, she looked up. "This is more serious than I thought. We're not just talking about greed, Miss Helen. We are talking about conspiracy to commit murder. That's prison time." "I want them to pay," I said firmly. "I want them to face the consequences for every horrible thing they've planned. And they will, but we need to build a solid case. The conversations you overheard are valuable, but we need recordings documents, physical evidence. Brenda is installing cameras tomorrow. Excellent. But there's more we can do." Sarah pulled several documents from her briefcase. "We need to revise your current will and trust. Who is the primary beneficiary? Mark, everything is in his name. I thought it was the right thing to do. He's my only son. Not anymore. We are going to draft a new will and trust tonight, one that Mark and Rachel will never see until it is too late." We spent 2 hours working on the documents. Sarah was meticulous, explaining every clause, every legal protection. The new will named my brother Michael, who lives in Oregon, as the principal beneficiary, established a trust for several charities focused on veterans, and left Mark a minimal $50,000, the legal minimum, so he couldn't challenge the document by claiming accidental emission. "We will need witnesses for the signing," Sarah said. "Brenda can be one. We need 2, and preferably people who have no interest in your estate. Dr. Henry, he can be the second." "Perfect. I will contact them tomorrow to come and sign. In the meantime, this document remains in my absolute custody. Mark will not know of its existence until the exact moment we decide to reveal it." I signed the new will with a trembling hand, not from weakness, but from emotion. It was my first real strike against Mark, the first piece of the puzzle falling into place. Now Sarah continued, "I need you to give me access to your bank accounts, your properties, everything. I'm going to run a full audit. If Mark has been stealing, and I suspect he has, I'm going to find every penny." I gave her all the account numbers, all the passwords, all the documents I had stored in my private safe deposit box. Sarah worked quickly, taking photos of everything with her phone. One more thing she said before leaving. "I need you to keep pretending. Keep being the dying, trusting mother. Every day they think they are winning is one more day we have to gather evidence. I can do that. I said I'm a better actress than they think." Sarah smiled for the first time. "I know. The simple fact that you are planning this while they believe you are dying tells me you are an extraordinary woman, Miss Helen." When she left after 2 in the morning, I felt something I hadn't felt in days. Hope control power. Mark and Rachel returned at 3, drunk and loud. I heard them stumbling up the stairs, laughing like teenagers. "I won $2,000, Mark was saying. $2,000 damn dollars in one night. It's a sign," Rachel replied. "Things are turning around for us. We'll finally have what we deserve." They went into their bedroom across the hall from mine and continued talking. I turned up the volume on the intercom. "When is the appraiser coming?" Mark asked. "Tomorrow at 10:00. I told him to come through the back door to be discreet. Your mother can't see him." "Perfect. And the transfer papers. I have them ready. We just need her signature. Even if she's weak, even if she can barely write a mark, is enough. My cousin the notary already knows what to do. We'll pay him $5,000 to look the other way. And what if she refuses to sign? There was a pause. Then Rachel said something that left me breathless. Then Frank does his job ahead of schedule. Either way, in 4 days maximum, she won't be a problem anymore. I like the way you think. Mark laughed. I recorded every word on my phone. Every single damn word. The next day, Brenda arrived early with a grocery bag that no one checked. Inside were the 3 tiny cameras. They were small, button-sized, with a Wi-Fi connection directly to an application on my phone. "Where should I install them?" she whispered. "The main living room where they sit and talk." "Put it inside the floral arrangement on the mantelpiece, the second one in the study behind the books on the shelf, and the third one in the dining room stuck under the hanging chandelier." Brenda worked quickly and silently while Mark and Rachel had breakfast on the patio. In 20 minutes, all 3 cameras were installed and working. I checked the app on my phone. The images were clear. The audio was perfect. "Excellent work, Brenda. To serve you, Miss Helen. These 2 don't know who they messed with." At 10 on her sharp, just as Rachel had said, the appraiser arrived. A man in his 50s with a briefcase and a professional camera. Mark let him in through the garden door. From my room, through the cameras, I watched them move through my house like vultures. The appraiser took photos, made notes evaluating every piece of furniture, every artwork, every detail. "This lamp is an antique Tiffany," he was saying, pointing to the crystal chandelier in the dining room that I had bought in New York. "It's worth at least $50,000. "What about the piano?" Rachel asked. "That's an original Steinway. 100,000 easy." Mark smiled as he totaled the figures. "How much in total for all the contents of the house, not counting the house itself?" "You're talking about $400,000 in furnishings, art, and objects." "Incredible," Rachel whispered. "It's more than I thought." "When can we proceed with the sale?" Mark asked. The appraiser looked at him with some discomfort. "Is your mother agreeable to this?" "My mother is very ill. She has days left. She gave me complete authorization to handle her affairs." The lie came so naturally from his lips. "I understand." "Well, I'll need legal documents to prove that authorization." "We'll have them soon," Mark assured him. I recorded everything, every word, every gesture, every complicit glance between Mark and Rachel. After the appraiser left, they came up to my room with papers in hand and fake smiles on their faces. "Mom, you're awake," Mark said with nauseating sweetness. "We need you to sign these papers. They are for the health insurance so we can pay your treatments without issues." I looked at the papers. They were property transfers documents that would give them total control of my estate. "I can't see well," I murmured. "The letters are blurry." "It doesn't matter, Mom. Just sign here." Mark put the pen in my hand. I let my hand tremble exaggeratedly. "I can't, son. It hurts too much." "Tomorrow, please." I saw frustration in his eyes, but he nodded. "It's all right, Mom. Tomorrow." When they left, I heard them in the hallway. "She's getting difficult," Mark growled. "Call Frank, have him come tonight. I'm tired of waiting." My heart pounded. They were going to try to kill me tonight. I immediately called Sarah. "I need you to come now with police if possible. They are going to try something tonight." "Calm down, Miss Helen. I already anticipated this. I've been working with a private detective. We've been monitoring Frank, the hospital employee. We have recordings of Mark offering him money. He'll be arrested today in 2 hours. And when they do, Mark will get very nervous. That's when they make mistakes. That's when we get more evidence." I hung up feeling a mix of fear and satisfaction. The trap was closing, but something was still missing. I still needed more to completely destroy them. That afternoon, Dr. Henry came to do a routine checkup. In front of Mark, his diagnosis was devastating. Miss Helen is deteriorating rapidly. Her vital signs are weak. I estimate she has a maximum of 3 days left. Mark tried to look sad, but I saw the relief on his face. 3 days, he thought. 3 days until the end of his world, I thought. At 6:00 in the evening, my phone vibrated with news that filled me with satisfaction. Sarah sent me a message. Frank arrested. He confessed everything. Mention Mark's name. The police want to talk to your son. I smiled from my bed. The first domino had just fallen. An hour later, 2 detectives knocked on my door. From my room through the cameras, I watched Mark open it with a confident expression that turned to panic when he saw the police badges. Mark Harrison, one of the detectives, asked, "Yes, that's me. What's going on?" "We need to ask you some questions about Frank Herrera. Do you know him?" I saw the color drain from Mark's face. Frank. Who? No, that name doesn't sound familiar. That's strange. He says you offered him $50,000 to accelerate the death of your mother who is ill in this house. Rachel appeared behind Mark, her eyes wide. That's ridiculous. My husband would never do something like that. We have recordings, Mom. Frank was smarter than your husband thought. Mark stammered. That's a lie. Frank is lying. He probably wants money. He's making things up. So you completely deny knowing him? Yes, I completely deny it. The detective nodded slowly. Interesting because we have phone records showing 17 calls between your number and Frank's in the last 2 weeks. Also, some quite explicit text messages. Mark was sweating. "I want to speak to an attorney. You can do that, but know that we are investigating attempted murder. If you have anything to tell us, now is the time. I have nothing to say without my attorney." The detectives left, but left a card. "We'll be in touch, Mr. Harrison. Tavier, don't leave the state." As soon as the door closed, Mark exploded. Damn, Frank, that idiot betrayed me. Rachel paced back and forth, hysterical. "They're going to arrest us, Mark. They're going to put us in jail. What are we going to do? Calm down? They don't have real evidence, just the words of a desperate orderly. Any good attorney can destroy that in court. What if your mother finds out Mark looked thoughtful? It doesn't matter. She only has 2 or 3 days left anyway. By the time this goes to trial, she'll be dead, and we'll have the money to pay the best attorneys in the country. What if she changes her will before she dies? She can't. She's too weak. Besides, she doesn't know anything that's going on." How wrong my son was. I recorded every word of that conversation, every admission of guilt, every twisted plan. That night, Sarah returned with more documents. She had completed the audit of my accounts, and what she found made my blood boil. "Mark has been stealing from you for 2 years, she explained, showing me pages and pages of transfers. He started with small amounts, 5,000 here, 10,000 there. But in the last 6 months, he got bolder. He's taken a total of $320,000 from your accounts. 320. I repeated, feeling nauseated. It all went to casinos, debt payments, luxury purchases for Rachel. There are receipts for $20,000 designer handbags, a $40,000 watch trips to Las Vegas. How did he get access to my accounts? He forged your signature on bank documents 2 years ago. I have the original copies. A handwriting expert can easily prove the fraud. I want him prosecuted for every penny stolen." Sarah smiled. "I've already prepared the lawsuit. Fraud, theft, document forgery, but we will wait for the perfect moment to file it when they are most confident. What about the hospital employee, Frank?" "He is cooperating completely. In exchange for a reduced sentence, he will testify against Mark. He has texts, call recordings, everything. Mark even sent him a $10,000 advance via bank transfer. That single transaction is sufficient evidence of conspiracy to murder. I leaned back on the pillow, processing everything. My son didn't just wish for my death. He had financed it. He had paid in advance to ensure I died. When do we present everything to the authorities, I asked. Not yet. We need the final blow. We need to catch them attempting something else. Something that is so unquestionable that no attorney can defend them. What do you have in mind? Sarah leaned forward. Will you sign those transfer papers they want so badly, but they will be fake versions that I will prepare documents with no legal value? They will think they won, that they have total control of your estate. They will become careless. They will openly celebrate. They will talk without filtering. And the cameras will record everything. Exactly. Their own arrogance will be their condemnation. The next day, I pretended to be worse. I could barely speak. I barely opened my eyes. Dr. Henry came and gave an even more grave prognosis in front of Mark and Rachel. 24 hours, 48 at most. Her body is shutting down. Will she suffer much? Mark asked. The doctor looked at him with a mix of disguised disgust and professionalism. We will do everything possible to keep her comfortable. When Mark and Rachel left the room, Henry approached me. This is coming to an end. Helen, are you ready? More than ready. I want to see their faces when they find out the truth. That afternoon, Brenda helped me sit up in bed. Sarah had prepared the fake documents perfectly. They looked legal official with seals and notary signatures that, of course, were completely invalid. Mark entered with Rachel, both with barely contained expressions of urgency. Mom, we need you to sign today. We can't wait any longer. The doctors say that maybe tomorrow you won't be able to, you know. I understand, son, I whispered weakly. Give me the papers. I saw the excitement in their eyes. I was finally going to give them what they wanted, or so they thought. With a trembling hand, I signed each document. Property, transfers, bank account access, absolute powers of attorney, all fake, all legally worthless. But they didn't know it. Thank you, Mom, Mark said, kissing my forehead. That kiss sent shivers down my spine. Rest now, everything will be fine. As soon as they left the room, I heard them shout with happiness in the hallway. We have it. We finally have it. Rachel was celebrating. 7 million, honey. 7 million. We are rich. Officially rich. They went down to the living room exactly where one of the cameras perfectly focused on them. Mark opened a bottle of expensive French champagne from my private cellar. To my dear mother, he said sarcastically, raising his glass. May she rest in peace very soon. Rachel laughed. We're finally getting rid of the old lady. I thought this day would never come. Tomorrow, I'm calling the bank. We're transferring everything to our accounts before she dies. That way, there are no legal complications. And if they ask anything, we have the signed papers. It's completely legal. Mark smiled wickedly. Well, almost legal. What are we doing first with the money paying off my debts? $800,000 in one go. After that penthouse we saw in Miami, $3 million, and then travel Europe, Asia, wherever we want in the house. We're selling it furnished $2.8 million. I don't want to stay here one day longer after she dies. They drank more champagne, getting drunker, becoming more reckless with their words. You know what's the funniest thing? Rachel said that she thought you were a good son until the end. She died believing you loved her. Mark let out a loud laugh. I loved her money. She as a person was always unbearable, controlling, critical, nosy. Let's toast to that, to her imminent deaths, and our permanent freedom. They clinked glasses again, completely unaware that every word, every gesture, every admission of contempt was being recorded in high definition. From my room with my phone in hand, I sent the videos in real time to Sarah. Her response was immediate. Perfect. This is gold. With this, plus the other evidence, we will destroy them in court. When do you want to execute the final plan? I thought for a moment. I needed it to be public, to be devastating, with no way for them to escape. Tomorrow, I replied. Organize the family meeting we discussed. Invite everyone. Are you sure it will be brutal? I know, and that's exactly why I want to do it. The next morning dawned with bright sunshine that contrasted with the storm that was about to break. Sarah had worked all night organizing what she called the truth meeting. She had contacted my brother Michael, who lived in Oregon, and knew nothing of my supposed terminal condition. She also invited 3 notaries, 2 attorney witnesses, and the detectives who had interrogated Mark the day before. Mark and Rachel knew nothing of this. They thought it was just another day waiting for my death. At 9 in the morning, Mark entered my room with a smile he no longer bothered to hide. Good morning, Mom. How did you sleep? Very poorly, son. I think today is my last day. Orf, I saw his eyes shine with barely contained excitement. Don't say that, Mom. Although if it is your time, I want you to know I always loved you. Liar until the end. Mark, I want to ask you a favor. I want to see the whole family one last time. Your Uncle Michael, the important people in my life. A proper goodbye. Mark frowned. Mom, Uncle Michael lives 5 hours away. He won't make it in time. He's already on his way. I called him last night. He'll arrive by noon. Please, son, it's my last wish. He couldn't refuse without seeming like the monster he was. All right, Mom, as you wish. And I want it in the big living room. I want to go downstairs. I want to be surrounded by my things one last time. Mom, you're too weak to go downstairs. Brenda will help me. Please, Mark. It's the only thing I ask. He sighed, clearly annoyed by the complication, but nodded. As you wish. At 11, Brenda helped me get dressed. I put on a lavender dress I had always liked, combed my hair, even put on a little makeup. Mark and Rachel thought it was my final vanity, my wish to look presentable in my last hours. They didn't know it was my war armor. When I walked down the stairs, leaning on Brenda, I saw the living room was already set up. Mark had placed chairs in a circle like an anticipated wake. How appropriate. I sat in my favorite armchair, the same one where I had spent thousands of nights reading, planning my businesses, building my empire. Michael arrived exactly at noon. My younger brother, 58 years old, rushed in with tears in his eyes. Helen, sis, I came as fast as I could. How are you? I'm fine, Michael. Better than I expected. I gave his hand a significant squeeze. He understood that something was going on. Mark greeted his uncle coldly. They had never gotten along. Michael had always seen through Mark's lies. Who else is coming? Rachel asked, nervous to see. This was getting bigger than they expected. My attorney Sarah and some people who need to be present. Your attorney for what? For the reading of my will, Rachel. I thought you'd like to hear it before I die, so there are no surprises. I saw Mark and Rachel exchange nervous glances. This made them anxious, but they couldn't refuse without raising suspicion. At 12:30, Sarah arrived with her briefcase. Behind her walked the 3 notaries, the 2 attorney witnesses, and finally the 2 detectives. Mark immediately stood up. What's going on here? Why are there police? Sit down, Mark. I said in a firm voice. Gone was the weak, dying voice. My real voice strong, clear. Mom, what I said, sit down. Something in my tone made him obey. Rachel clung to his arm, pale. Sarah positioned herself at the front of the room. "Good morning, everyone. We are here for several urgent legal matters concerning Ms. Helen Harrison and her estate." "I don't understand," Mark stammered. "Mom, you said you were going to die today. The doctor said you had hours left." I slowly stood up. Brenda offered to help, but I waved her off. I walked toward Mark, each step firm, every movement showing I was not dying at all. The doctor exaggerated my condition. "Mark, yes, I had a serious accident. Yes, I was in danger, but I am not dying. At least not in the next few days. I probably have months, maybe more." Mark's face lost all color. But the doctor said, "Dr. Henry is my friend of 30 years. He helped me see your true face, the face you showed when you smiled, hearing I only had 3 days to live." I didn't. "Mom, you're confused." I was in shock. I didn't know how to react. "In shock? Is that why you told Rachel she's finally going to die? All her money will be ours." Rachel let out a gasp. You heard us. I heard everything, Rachel. Every conversation, every plan, every cruel word you said." Thinking I was too weak to realize, Sarah pressed a button on her laptop. On the large TV screen that Mark had bought with my stolen money, the video began to play. Mark and Rachel's voices filled the room. "All your money will be mine and my wife's. It's about time. $7 million. Let's toast to her imminent death." Mark jumped to his feet. "Turn that off. You don't have the right to record private conversations." "In my own home, I have every right," I replied coldly. And this is only the beginning. Sarah played the next video. Mark talking to the appraiser, evaluating my possessions while I was supposedly agonizing. Then the conversations about Frank, the murder plot, the promised payments. Michael watched with growing horror. The notaries took notes. The detectives recorded Mark and Rachel's every reaction. This is a misunderstanding," Mark tried to explain. "We were joking. The stress made us say things we didn't mean." Joking, Sarah pulled out a thick folder. "Were you also joking when you stole $320,000 from your mother's accounts over the last 2 years? The silence in the room was absolute. I have here every fraudulent transaction, every forged signature, every unauthorized withdrawal, $320,000 that you spent at casinos, on luxuries, on maintaining a lifestyle you couldn't afford. I had permission." Mark lied. "Mom gave me access to her accounts. Show me the document where I gave you that permission. I don't have it here, but it exists." "It doesn't exist, Mark, because I never gave you permission. You forged my signature, and I have handwriting experts who can prove it." Rachel began to cry. "Mark, you said this was legal. You said your mother agreed." "Shut up," Mark ordered her. "No, I won't shut up. I'm not going to prison for your lies," Sarah continued. "We also have evidence that Mark contacted a hospital employee, Frank Herrera, offering him $50,000 to accelerate Miss Helen's death using lethal doses of morphine." The detective stood up. One of them spoke. "Mr. Mark Harrison, you are under arrest for conspiracy to commit homicide, fraud, theft, and document forgery." "No, wait. This is ridiculous. Mom, tell them this is a mistake." I looked him directly in the eyes. "There is no mistake, Mark. You planned my murder. You stole my money. You celebrated the idea of my death. And you thought you were smart enough to get away with it. You're my mother. How can you do this to me? How could you do everything you did to me? I gave you everything, Mark. Everything. I loved you unconditionally, and you wished for my death for money." Tears streamed down my face now, but they were not tears of weakness. They were tears of rage and liberation. The detectives placed handcuffs on Mark's wrists. He struggled, screamed, denied everything. Rachel tried to run toward the door, but the other detective stopped her. "You too, Miss Harrison. Conspiracy and complicity." "No, I only did what Mark told me. It's not my fault." "You have the right to remain silent." The detective began as he put the handcuffs on her. Sarah approached me. "Do you want to say anything else before they take them away?" I looked at Mark one last time. My son, the baby I had carried the boy. I had raised the man who had betrayed me in the cruelest way possible. Just one thing I said. "The papers you signed yesterday, the property, transfers, the bank access, all of that was fake. It has no legal value. You have nothing, Mark. Absolutely nothing." His eyes widened in horror. "No, it can't be. And my real will, the one I signed with 3 witnesses 4 days ago, leaves everything to your Uncle Michael and to veterans charities. You will receive $50,000, the legal minimum." Mark let out a primal scream of pure rage that echoed through the house. "No, that's mine. It's all mine. I worked for that." "You worked?" My voice rose. "When did you work, Mark?" "Because I built this empire cleaning offices at night while you slept. I signed contracts after 20 hours without rest. I risked everything I had while you enjoyed a comfortable life you never earned. You're my mother. You had an obligation to give me everything. I had an obligation to raise you, educate you, love you, and I did, but I have no obligation to reward you for wishing for my death." The detectives began to drag him toward the door. Mark continued to shout obscenities, threats, desperate pleas. Rachel cried hysterically. "Miss Helen, please. I have 2 small children. I can't go to prison. Please forgive me. Where were your children when you planned my murder, Rachel? Did you think of them when you toasted my death? You wanted a better life for them, built on my grave. What an exemplary mother." Sarah intervened. "Miss Harrison can cooperate with the prosecution. If she testifies against Mark and returns what she can of the stolen money, she might get a reduced sentence." Rachel clung to that hope like a shipwreck survivor to a plank. Yes, I'll testify. I'll tell them everything. It was all Mark's idea. I just followed his orders." Mark looked at her with hatred. "Traitor, you damn traitor. You got us into this. You and your gambling addiction, you and your lies. They were taken away amidst mutual screams and accusations." The door closed, and finally, after days of tension, there was silence. Michael approached and hugged me tightly. "Sis, I can't believe what I just witnessed. Your own son. I know Michael. Believe me, I know. How could you stay so strong through all this? Because if I crumbled, they won, and I wasn't going to allow it." Sarah began packing up her documents. "The legal process will be long, Miss Helen. Months, maybe a year. But with all the evidence we gathered, there is no way they will escape jail. How much time will they get for attempted murder, fraud, and grand theft? Mark could face between 15 and 25 years. Rachel, if she cooperates, maybe between 5 and 10. The magnitude of those numbers hit me. My son would spend decades in prison. Part of me felt pain for that, but a larger part felt that justice was finally being done. The notaries had me sign several official documents confirming my competent mental state, my capacity to make legal decisions, and the validity of my new will. Everything was registered with official seals and multiple witnesses. We will also file criminal charges for the money stolen, Sarah explained. The bank will cooperate completely. Mark will have to return every penny plus interest and penalties. He doesn't have money to return. I said he spent it all. Then everything he has in his name will be seized. his car, his possessions, everything, and he will have a debt that will pursue him for the rest of his life. When everyone left except Michael and Brenda, I collapsed onto the armchair. The emotional exhaustion was worse than any physical pain from the accident. "Do you want me to help you upstairs to rest?" Brenda asked tenderly. "In a moment first, I need to process all this." Michael sat beside me. "Are you okay, Helen? I want the truth. I'm devastated. Michael, my son, wanted me dead." "How does a mother process that? I don't know, sis. But I know you did the right thing. Mark needs to face the consequences of his actions. Part of me feels like I failed as a mother. Where did I go wrong? At what point did he become this monster?" "You didn't go wrong. You gave him love education opportunities. He made his own decisions, his bad decisions. Brenda brought me hot tea. Miss Helen, I saw how you raised that boy. You were an exemplary mother. What Mark became is not your fault. Some people simply have darkness in their hearts." Their words comforted me a little, though the pain remained deep and sharp. That night alone in my room, I reviewed the recordings one last time. Seeing Mark celebrate my death, seeing the joy in his eyes upon hearing my supposed terminal sentence, was like nails in my heart. But it also reminded me why I had done all this. Not just for justice, but for dignity, for refusing to be a victim until my last breath. The next day, the news exploded in the local media. Millionaire matriarch uncovers murder plot, orchestrated by her own son, read the headlines. Reporters constantly called my door. Sarah handled everything, issuing a brief statement requesting privacy during this difficult time. But the calls that mattered most to me were different. Former business partners expressing their support. Friends I didn't know I had sent flowers and messages. Employees from my properties called to say they had always suspected Mark. He was skimming off the rent. One of my building managers confessed. He said you had authorized him to collect directly. I thought it was strange, but I didn't want to cause trouble. How much did he steal from the rent? I'm not sure. Maybe another $100,000 in the last year. More theft, more betrayal. Every day I discovered a new wound Mark had inflicted. Sarah added these new charges to the growing list. This adds up, Miss Helen. Every additional crime means more time in prison. A week after the arrest, I received a letter from Mark from jail. Brenda brought it in with a worried expression. "Do you want me to read it?" asked Michael, who had stayed with me during these difficult days. "No, I'll read it." I opened the envelope with trembling hands. Mark's familiar handwriting filled 3 pages. "Mom, I know I made mistakes. I know I hurt you, but I am still your son. I'm the only blood relative you have besides Michael. You can't abandon me like this. I need you to drop the charges. I need you to forgive me." I was confused. The pressure of the debts drove me crazy. But deep down, I care about you. You always mattered to me. Please, Mom, give me a second chance. Your grandchildren need their father. Don't do this to them. Tears fell onto the paper as I read. Even now, even after everything Mark was trying to manipulate me, using his children as a shield, feigning remorse, promising changes that would never come. "What does it say?" Michael asked. "The same as always, lies wrapped in pleas." "Are you going to answer?" I thought about it at length. Part of me, the mother who still lived inside, wanted to believe there could be redemption. But the woman who had heard her son celebrate her death knew the truth. No, there's nothing to say to him. I tore the letter into small pieces and let them fall into the trash. 2 weeks after the arrest, Sarah called me with news that would change everything again. "Miss Helen, we found something else, something big. What is it now? Mark has a secret bank account in the Cayman Islands with $500,000. I gasped. $500,000. Where did he get so much money? That's the interesting part. We tracked the transactions. He sold 3 of your commercial properties 6 months ago. Properties you had given him as a gift years ago when you still trusted him. Those properties were worth at least $800,000. Exactly. He sold them below market price for a quick sale. 700,000 TORs in total. 200,000 went directly to pay casino debts. The other 500,000 he hid in this offshore account. The betrayal kept growing layer upon layer. Why would he hide that money? Because he was planning to flee the country once you died. We found emails between him and Rachel discussing moving to Costa Rica or Panama with fake identities. They wanted to disappear with your inheritance before the debts caught up with them. My God, how far did his plan go? Very far, Miss Helen. We found fake passports, already processed plane tickets purchased for 2 weeks after your expected date of death. Even a property already rented in San Jose, Costa Rica. I sat down heavily in the armchair. My son didn't just want my money. He wanted to wipe himself off the map with it. Let his own children grow up fatherless while he lived a life of luxury with stolen money. We can recover that money. We've already initiated the legal process. With the criminal charges, the government can freeze those accounts. It will take time, but yes, eventually we will recover it. I want every penny of that to go toward an educational fund for my grandchildren. They are the innocent victims in all of this. That's a beautiful idea. We'll do it. That same afternoon, another unexpected visitor arrived. Deborah, Rachel's mother, a woman in her mid-60s who had always been distant from me. Miss Helen, I know I have no right to be here. She began in a trembling voice. But I needed to talk to you. Come in, Deborah. Sit down. She sat on the edge of the sofa, nervous, wringing a handkerchief in her hands. I came to ask for your forgiveness for my daughter, for not having seen what was happening, for not having stopped her. You didn't know. I should have known. The last few months, Rachel was different. She was spending money like crazy, buying expensive things, bragging about the coming inheritance. I thought Mark had gotten a good job. I never imagined they were stealing from you. Did you know anything about the plan about Frank Deborah turned pale? The plan to kill you? God, no. I found out when they were arrested. I almost had a heart attack. My own daughter planning a murder. I've gone to see her in jail once. I couldn't bear it. She lied straight to my face. She said it was all Mark's fault, that she was a victim. But I heard the recordings that came out in the news. I heard her laughing about your death. That's not the daughter I raised. People change when money is involved. My grandchildren ask me where their mom is. I don't know what to tell them. How do you explain to a 6-year-old that his mother is in jail for trying to kill his grandmother? My heart ached. The children were always the ones who suffered the most in these situations. Where are they now with me? Social services gave me temporary custody. But Ms. Helen, I don't have the resources. I live on my pension. I can barely give them the basics. Deborah listened to me closely. Those children are my grandchildren. They will not pay for their parents' sins. I am going to establish a trust for their education, health, and basic needs. They will have everything they require. Deborah began to weep. I don't deserve your kindness. My daughter tried to kill you. Exactly. Your daughter, not you, not the children. Kindness isn't about deserving. It's about doing the right thing. She hugged me crying for several minutes. When she left, I felt a little lighter. At least something good would come out of this nightmare. The date for the preliminary hearing approached. Sarah prepared me to testify, warning me that it would be difficult to see them again. Mark will do everything possible to manipulate you emotionally, she explained. He will cry, beg for forgiveness, play the victim. You need to be mentally prepared. I am. But I wasn't really. Nothing could have prepared me for seeing my son handcuffed, dressed in the orange jail uniform, looking at me with a mixture of rage and plea. The judge read the charges: conspiracy to commit homicide, grand theft fraud, document forgery, tax evasion, attempted flight. The list seemed endless. How does the defendant plead? The judge asked. Mark's defense attorney, an expensive man paid with the little that remained in the accounts before they were frozen, stood up. Your Honor, my client pleads not guilty. We argue that he suffered a mental breakdown due to the stress of seeing his mother ill. His actions, while questionable, had no real criminal intent. Sarah almost laughed out loud. Your Honor, we have recordings of the defendant celebrating his mother's imminent death. We have evidence of systematic theft for years. We have documents proving he planned to flee the country. This was not a mental breakdown. It was a calculated and premeditated plan. The judge reviewed the documents. Bail is set at $2 million. Mark did not have $2 million. He didn't even have $200,000 after all his accounts were frozen. Your Honor, his attorney pleaded, that amount is excessive. My client has family, children who depend on him. Your client attempted to murder his own mother for money, the judge replied dryly. Bail is maintained. Next case. Mark looked at me as the guards led him away. Mom, please don't leave me here. Please. I maintained a neutral expression, but inside my heart broke into 1,000 pieces. Rachel had her hearing immediately afterward. Her strategy was completely different. She cried, pleaded guilty to some minor charges offered to testify against Mark in exchange for a reduced sentence. My husband manipulated me. She sobbed. I only wanted to protect my children. He threatened me, saying if I didn't cooperate, he would take the children away. More lies. The recordings clearly showed she was an enthusiastic participant, not a manipulated victim. But the legal system is like that. The one who speaks first sometimes gets a better deal. The prosecutor accepted her offer. Rachel would testify against Mark, return all the money she could, and in exchange would receive a sentence of 7 to 10 years instead of 15 to 20. When we left the court, Michael took my arm. How do you feel? Like I just buried my son, except he's still alive. Just a stranger with his face. I'm sorry, sis. Me too. That night, I couldn't sleep. The images from the hearing kept repeating in my mind. Mark in handcuffs, his pleading eyes, his broken voice asking for help. But then I remembered his other words. You're finally going to die. Mom, all your money will be mine. And the pain transformed back into resolution. The next morning, I received a call from the prison. Mark was requesting a visit. Sarah advised me not to go. You have no obligation to him, and anything you tell him can be used against him or for him in the trial. I know, but I need closure on this chapter. I need to see him one last time and say everything I need to say. Then I will go with you and we will legally record everything. 2 days later, I entered the prison visiting room. Mark was sitting on the other side of the glass, emaciated, deep circles under his eyes, wrinkled uniform. I picked up the phone. He did the same. Mom, his voice broke. Thank you for coming. I didn't come for you, Mark. I came for me, for closure. Please listen to me. I was desperate. The debts were killing me. The collectors were threatening to hurt my family. I panicked and made bad decisions. Bad decisions. Mark, you planned my murder. You celebrated the idea of my death. You stole from me for years. I know, no one. And I regret it. Every second here, I regret it. But Mom, I'm still your son. Your only son. You can't abandon me. You abandoned me first. The day you decided my death was worth less than your financial comfort. What can I do for you to forgive me? I looked at him for a long time. Nothing. There is nothing you can do. Forgiveness doesn't work like that. It is not earned with pleas or empty promises. It is earned with real change, with genuine remorse, with time and actions. And you have none of those things. Please, Mom. Goodbye, Mark. This is the last time we will see each other. I will live the time I have left in peace without your toxicity, without your lies. I hung up the phone while he shouted something inaudible from the other side of the glass. I left that prison feeling as if 1,000 weight had been lifted from my shoulders. The following months were a whirlwind of legal proceedings, hearings, and testimonies. Every week brought new revelations about the depth of Mark's betrayal. Sarah discovered he had forged my signature not only on bank documents, but also on sales contracts for 2 additional properties I didn't even know he had sold. The money, another $300,000, had gone straight to cover more gambling debts and to the offshore account. In total, Sarah explained during one of our meetings, Sugg stole approximately $1.22 million from your estate in different ways over 3 years. $200,000, I repeated, still processing the magnitude of the theft. 3 years stealing from me right under my nose. And he would have kept doing it if the accident hadn't accelerated his plans. In a twisted way, that accident saved you from additional years of theft. It was a twisted way of seeing things. But she was right. The main trial began in October 6th, months after the arrest. The room was full of reporters, curious onlookers, and some of my employees who wanted to show their support. Rachel testified first, just as she had promised. With fabricated tears and a trembling voice, she told how Mark had convinced her to participate in the plan. He said his mother was suffering, that it would be an act of mercy to accelerate her death. She lied shamelessly. I didn't want to, but I was afraid to contradict him. Mark can be very intimidating when he gets angry. Mark's defense attorney tried to discredit her testimony, pointing to the recordings where she clearly participated with enthusiasm, but the damage was already done. The jury had heard someone close to Mark confirm his intentions. Frank, the hospital orderly, testified next. He admitted Mark had offered him $50,000 to administer lethal doses of morphine. He showed me bank transfers, Frank explained. $10,000 upfront, the rest after she died. He said it would be quick, that no one would suspect because she was already sick. And you accepted? The prosecutor asked. At first I thought he was joking, but when I saw the money in my account, I got scared. I went straight to the authorities. I'm an orderly. My job is to save lives, not take them. Mark's attorney tried to argue that Frank had attempted to extort his client, but the recordings of their conversations proved otherwise. Mark had initiated the contact, offered the money, and insisted on the plan. When it was my turn to testify, the silence in the room was absolute. I walked toward the stand with my head held high, though my legs were trembling. The prosecutor guided me through the events. I told them about the accident, about the false diagnosis Dr. Henry had given with my consent, about Mark's reaction to hearing I only had 3 days to live. Can you describe that reaction for the jury? The prosecutor asked. He smiled. It wasn't a nervous smile or one of shock. It was a smile of relief and satisfaction. When the doctor left, my son leaned toward me and whispered, "You're finally going to die, Mom. All your money will be mine and my wife's. It's about time." I heard murmurs of disbelief in the room. Some jury members looked at me with compassion. "How did you feel when you heard that?" Like my heart had been ripped out. For 35 years, I was his mother. I raised him alone after my husband died. I sacrificed everything to give him the best life possible. And the moment he thought I was dying, his only concern was when he could collect his inheritance. Tears streamed down my face. I didn't try to stop them. They were real. Every single one of them of the defense attorney tried to attack my credibility during cross-examination. "Miss Helen, isn't it true that you orchestrated this elaborate plan to trap your son, that you lied about your medical condition intentionally?" I exaggerated my condition, yes, but only after hearing my son celebrate my supposed death, only after realizing I needed to protect myself. "Isn't it true that you have a history of being controlling with your son, of criticizing his financial decisions? I tried to guide him toward responsible decisions." "Yes." "Especially when I discovered his gambling addiction. But I never controlled him. I gave him Freedom Resources unconditional support." Unconditional support. Then why are you testifying against him now? Why don't you drop the charges and forgive your only son? I stood up looking directly at him. Because my son planned to murder me. Because he stole over $1 million from me. Because when he thought I was dying, the only thing he felt was happiness. Forgiveness does not mean allowing someone to destroy your life without consequences. The attorney had no answer for that. Sarah presented the video and audio recordings. The entire room listened to Mark and Rachel celebrating my death, planning what to do with my money, discussing accelerating my death with Frank's help. I saw several jury members shake their heads in disgust. An older woman wiped away tears. Financial experts testified about the fraudulent transactions, the forged signatures, the secret accounts. Every piece of evidence built a stronger case. Dr. Henry testified about how Mark had inquired about my financial health even before asking about my medical condition after the accident. "It seems strange to me," he explained. "A worried son asks first if his mother is going to survive. Mark first asked about my will, about who would have access to my assets if I became incapacitated." Brenda testified about the conversation she had overheard about how Mark and Rachel walked through the house, evaluating what to sell, talking about my death, as if discussing the weather. Every testimony was another nail in Mark's legal coffin. Finally, the moment came for the closing arguments. The prosecutor was direct and devastating. "Ladies and gentlemen of the jury, this case is not just about greed. It's about the deepest betrayal that can exist. A son who not only wished for his mother's death, but actively worked to accelerate it. A son who for years Dio systematically stole from the woman who gave him life. A son who saw his mother connected to machines in a hospital. And his first thought was, when can I collect? The defense will want you to believe this was a moment of weakness, that stress led him to questionable decisions. But the evidence shows something very different. It shows years of planning. It shows systematic theft. It shows a secret bank account in a tax haven. It shows fake passports and escape plans. This was not a moment of weakness. It was a calculated and premeditated criminal plan. And when that plan was about to be executed, when Mark Harrison thought he would finally have all his mother's money, she did something extraordinary. She refused to be a victim. She used her intelligence, her strength, and her dignity to expose the truth. Mrs. Helen is not asking for vengeance. She is asking for justice. And justice in this case is clear. Mark Harrison must be found guilty on all counts and must face the full consequences of his actions. The defense attorney attempted one last desperate defense. My client made mistakes. Yes, terrible mistakes. But he is still a human being, a father of 2 children, a man who made bad decisions under extreme pressure. Does he deserve to lose decades of his life for those decisions? Does he deserve for his children to grow up without a father? He turned toward me. Miss Helen is a powerful woman, a woman who orchestrated this elaborate plan to trap her own son. Is there not some cruelty in that too? Couldn't she have simply talked to him, sought professional help, found another way? Sarah had prepared me for this moment. I stood still, head held high, showing no emotion. The jury retired to deliberate. Sarah told me it could take days, but it only took 6 hours. When they returned, the jury foreman stood up. On the charge of conspiracy to commit homicide, we find the defendant guilty. Mark collapsed in his chair. On the charges of grand theft fraud, document forgery, tax evasion, and attempted flight, we find the defendant guilty on all counts. The judge's gavel hit the block, echoing like thunder. The defendant will be sentenced in 30 days. He will remain in custody until then. Mark turned to me, his eyes full of hatred. This is your fault. You did this to me. You destroyed my life. The guards led him away while he continued screaming accusations, denials, curses. Michael hugged me. Sarah squeezed my hand. Brenda wept with relief. I had won. Justice had been served. But as we left the court amidst camera flashes and reporters' questions, I felt no triumph. I felt a deep emptiness where the love for my son used to be. The sentencing came a month later in a smaller but equally tense room. Mark walked in, handcuffed thinner with a vacant look I barely recognized. The judge reviewed the documents with a serious expression. Mr. Mark Harrison, you have been found guilty on multiple serious charges. Before passing sentence, is there anything you wish to say? Mark stood up tremblingly. He looked directly at me. Mom, I know I don't deserve your forgiveness. I know I did unforgivable things, but I want you to know that I regret it. The man who planned those horrible things wasn't me. It was someone consumed by desperation and addiction. I lost my way. I lost my humanity. And in the process, I lost the most valuable thing I had, your love. The judge waited to see if I would respond. I did not. Those words came too late. Very well, the judge said. Mr. Harms, Mr. Harrison, your crimes represent one of the deepest betrayals that can exist in a family relationship. For the charge of conspiracy to commit homicide, the sentence is 18 years in state prison. For the combined charges of fraud, theft, and forgery, an additional 7 years are added. Total sentence 25 years in state prison. 25 years. Mark would be 60 years old when he got out. Furthermore, you must restitute the $1.2 million stolen plus interest. All your properties will be seized. Mark didn't react. He simply bowed his head and let the guards lead him away. When everything was legally over, I felt strangely empty. Justice had been done, but the emotional price had been devastating. Michael stayed with me for the following weeks. How do you feel, sis? Like I won a battle but lost something invaluable. I won my dignity, my justice, but I lost my son. You had already lost him years ago, Helen. You just know it now. Sarah finalized all the legal paperwork. We established the educational trust for my grandchildren, ensuring they had everything they needed. We also recovered $300,000 from the Cayman Islands account Sarah informed me. Allocate that money to the foundation I want to create for families destroyed by gambling addictions to help people like Mark before they reach the point he reached. Sarah smiled with admiration. After everything he did to you, you are still looking to help others like him. You are an extraordinary woman. I am not extraordinary. I just understand that pain should not be wasted. If my suffering can prevent that of others, then it has purpose. The following months were dedicated to rebuilding my life. My health, contrary to the initial prognosis, improved considerably. I visited my grandchildren regularly. At first it was difficult. They saw me as the reason their parents were in prison. But with time, patience, and love, they began to understand. Grandma, my oldest grandson, now 8 years old, asked me one day, "Why did Daddy do those bad things?" Sometimes people get lost, sweetie. They make bad choices that lead them down dark paths. Your daddy got lost. Do you hate him? No, I don't hate him. I am very hurt, but I don't hate him. He is your father and will always be my son, even though we have to be separated now. Will you ever forgive him? I don't know, honey. But what I do know is that you are not to blame, and I love you with all my heart. He hugged me tightly, and I knew that something good had come out of this nightmare. The Harrison Foundation, named for my late husband Robert, opened its doors a year later. It offered free therapy for gambling addicts, financial counseling, and educational programs. On opening day, dozens of people came. This foundation is my way of transforming pain into purpose, I said during my speech. I cannot change what my son did, but I can use my experience to help others. Brenda became my closest friend. I offered her a position as the foundation administrator, which she accepted with grateful tears. Michael assumed the role of principal heir with grace. I won't fail you, sis. I'll make sure your legacy continues exactly as you planned. 2 years later, I received a letter from Mark from prison. This time, it was different. He spoke of therapy, of facing his addiction, of genuine repentance. He didn't expect a reply or forgiveness. He just needed me to know that he finally understood the monster he had become. I folded the letter slowly. Tears fell down my cheeks. "Are you going to respond?" Michael asked. "Not now. Maybe someday, but not now." 3 more years passed. I turned 66, surrounded by true friends and my grandchildren, who called me Grandma with genuine love. The foundation had helped more than 2,000 families. We had saved marriages, prevented bankruptcies, rescued people from the abyss. One day during a group therapy session, a young man told his story. It sounded disturbingly similar to Mark's. After the session, I spoke to him. "I want to tell you a story about a son who loved gambling more than he loved his mother." I told him everything, every painful detail. When I finished, he was crying. "I don't want to be like your son." "Then don't be. You have a chance he didn't take." 6 months later, that young man came back. He was sober from gambling. He had repaired his relationship with his wife. "You saved me, Ms. Helen." "No, you saved yourself. I just showed you what you could lose." Now, 5 years after that terrible day in the hospital, I can say I found peace. It wasn't easy or fast, but I found it. Mark is still in prison. My grandchildren visit him occasionally, a decision I respect. My fortune, instead of being divided by greed, now serves a higher purpose. It helps, it heals, it prevents tragedies. And I, against all odds, am still alive, strong, dignified. Some people ask me if I will ever completely forgive him. I still don't know the answer. What I do know is this: I refuse to die a victim. I transform pain into purpose, rage, into action, despair, into dignity. Because in the end, the best revenge is not crushing the one who hurt you. It is living so fully, so worthily, so meaningfully, that their betrayal becomes nothing more than a footnote in the story of your triumph. And that, exactly, that is what I did for years. I believe my legacy was the millions of dollars I accumulated, the real estate empire I forged through sheer grit and sacrifice. I thought that kind of material success was the ultimate expression of my hard work and the assurance of my son's future. However, the depth of Mark's betrayal, his cold-blooded calculation, and plan to murder me for that very fortune shattered that illusion. My true victory was not in retaining the wealth, but in using the last moments of my perceived life to reclaim my dignity and expose a painful truth. The real lesson is that wealth is merely a tool. Its value is determined by the hand that wields it. By choosing to redirect the stolen and recovered assets into the Harrison Foundation, I transformed the instrument of my son's greed into a vehicle for saving others from the same dark addiction that consumed him. The foundation, which now aids thousands of families, has become the only meaningful legacy I will leave behind. It's a testament to turning the darkest chapter of my life into a light for others, proving that a purposeful life is far more powerful and enduring than any amount of